Did you know that today is the National Hug a Musician Day? That's right. So, I'm not sure whether that's a good idea or not. Really, probably depends on the musician that you're hanging out with. Yeah, there you go. There's your pointless trivia for the start of our staff video update. This week we did have staff meeting. We processed some incredible Golden Mike stories. Thank you so much for sharing those. I love how you are starting your stories. I don't know if you even realize this, but you're like, hey, I am celebrating, insert the name of the person that you're celebrating the steps that they're taking. A few of you did that, and I just thought that was pretty cool. And for me, it's a tank filler to hear the specific ways that God's showing up through you, through our campuses, and through the ministry of our church. We're also celebrating the numbers of people that God continues to bring to At the Movies. This week, we continue with At the Movies, dealing with pain. And so this week, I think will be a little more introspective. And so for those who like to laugh, this may not be like their favorite movie, but I think the message is really important and applicable. And we're going to process what do we do with some of the pain in our life. And I think the story that you're going to watch will illustrate that. So I'm looking forward to that. Next weekend, we have a very inspiring story that I'm excited to experience with everybody. But one of the things that I want to bring back and kind of process through is a little bit, take a different angle at, is this idea of managing our leadership anxiety. I talked through Steve Cuss's story and his book. We've included a link to that, the slides from the staff meeting. But chronic anxiety is not trauma, it's not grief, it's not broken neurology that may require some medication. All of that is separate, important, and oftentimes necessary to journey. Oftentimes it's helpful to have a professional, a medical professional guiding us through that process as well. But chronic anxiety is something that we really all deal with. And you may not consider yourself an anxious person, but I promise you, you are. You carry a reactivity, and our reactivity tends to get bigger when things trigger our chronic anxiety. What is that? That's a false need that feels like a real need. It's pressure or a problem or something that we think is dangerous that isn't really dangerous. We just feel like it is. It's threatening us in some way. And so we either get bigger, we get defensive, we get louder, we interrupt, or we get smaller, we get quiet, we retreat, we get a little potentially passive aggressive, or we do both, either way. I talk through noticing your chronic anxiety, learning how to name your chronic anxiety, and then inviting Jesus into that space, getting curious about why we feel like this is a real need, and remembering how getting curious why we feel like it's a real need, and then reminding ourselves that Jesus died so that we are no longer defined by our need to be in control, our need to be perfect, our need to be present, our need to have an answer, our need for everybody to like us. Those aren't real needs. They are real feelings. The feelings aren't bad, but we just don't want those feelings to drive our life. And so I included a link to the Carey Nieuwhof podcast where he talks through that a little bit more. It may be worth a listen if you want to go a little bit deeper, or you want to hear the OG, Steve Cuss himself, talk through that. I have found it helpful. Hopefully it was helpful for you. One of the things that I had you do at the end of staff meeting is share this with a couple of people around you. And you may have felt this, like that's vulnerable space. When you start admitting some false needs that you may struggle with, it's like, ooh, some of you may not have even taken the opportunity to share. It may have triggered some chronic anxiety in you, and so you just got quiet and you let everybody else talk. You hope you had somebody in the group who would fill the time, and that may have happened to you. What I want to propose to you today is what I put in the app video, and that is, how do you become a safe space for others? And the first thing that I talked about on the app is you just got to know your own limitations. I mean, we all want to be safe people for the people, especially that we care about. But there are some issues and some areas where we are either not equipped or we're not prepared to handle with a non-anxious presence. We're going to get triggered by whatever it is that they're sharing with us. And so Proverbs 17:22 says that a joyful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. When We can step into a situation joyfully, or not like happy, yay, but like as a non-anxious presence. It's good medicine. But when we step into a situation and it crushes our spirit, or we already have a crushed spirit, it dries up the bones of us and everybody else around us. So know your limitations. Be aware of your own internal life dialogue and preparedness, if you will. The second thing is that we've got to be a trustworthy person, which means if you're always talking to someone about someone else, the issues that someone else is going through, the problems you're having with someone else, you're not a safe person. Because, no, don't misunderstand me. Yes, sometimes we have to process, I had this tension or whatever. But if you're always gossiping about someone else, which is easy, it's tempting. Sometimes it feels delicious to do, right? So if you're always doing that with other people, then you're not a safe person. I'm not gonna share with you what's really going on because I don't know what you're gonna say about me when I'm not around. And so be a trustworthy person. Proverbs 11:13 says, a gossip betrays a confidence, but a trustworthy person can keep a secret, knows when to keep something to themselves. I used to say more frequently that you know how much leadership you can handle by how you handle the information that you're given. And if you can't hold on to information, if when you hear something, you use that opportunity to share with other people what you heard so that they feel like, ooh, you've got an inside track, it means you probably can't handle higher levels of leadership. And so learning how to hold information is a sign of relational maturity. The third thing is we need to learn how to listen well. And this isn't something that comes naturally to us. I mean, from the very time that we're born, we're talking, we're interacting. Yes, there's not a whole lot of words initially as a baby, but active listening is not something that we are naturally gifted at. We are typically, even some of you right now, you're having dialogue with me in your head, right? We're listening to people, but we're actually thinking about what we're going to say next. And so James 1:19 just has a great reminder for people like me who like to talk. Be quick to listen and slow to speak. And the secret is when you're quick to listen and slow to speak, it slows down your anger and the anger or the reactivity of the people around us. And so don't minimize, don't lecture, don't mansplain, don't just fix other people's problems. Stay curious. Tell me more about that. Man, that must have been hard. Thanks for sharing that with me. Because the first ingredient of love, according to 1 Corinthians 13, is love is patient. And so when we are active, patient listeners, when we learn how to listen well, in many ways it accelerates our ability to really help someone, because sometimes people just need a place to share some of what they're processing through. And that's how we become a safe space. We know our limitations. We become a trustworthy, or we live as a trustworthy person able to hold information, and we listen well. So my hope is that as we begin to lean into some of this chronic anxiety space, we provide some safe spaces, not just for us, but for the dream team, that we would pass that investment on to them. Because as people feel safe here, as they feel seen and heard, I think God uses that to help us find freedom from some of the things that hold us back in life, in our faith, and in our relationships. And so my hope is that that was helpful for you. Love you guys. Excited about this week. Take a moment and pray for the invites that are going out, and that God would use this weekend to help yet again introduce people to Him and help each of us take a next step on our life-changing adventure with Him. Thanks.